Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Fallout 4 mod video. Today, we're checking out another Commonwealth weapon re-release, and I feel like it's been at least a little while since we've checked out one of our gun mods, because I don't think we've made a gun here in a little bit. This one came out on the 11th of October, and our last gun came out about a month ago with the 12.7 SMG. Since then, we did the cool Brotherhood of Steel Sword, and we did our big Minutemen outfit pack. So we haven't done a gun in a while. But now we're here with a gun that we've actually been wanting to do for quite some time. A brand new assault shotgun known as the Marine Shotgun. A prototype burst fire shotgun that is technically real. This is a prototype weapon that was sort of considered as a potential option made by Smith & Wesson. I believe it was actually made for a weapon trial, possibly the same trial as the H&K CAWS, but it never went anywhere. And we always find it very fun to take the idea of these prototype weapons that never went anywhere and make them go somewhere in the Fallout universe, because there actually is precedence for this. You may be familiar with the concept of the Pancor Jackhammer. That is a shotgun that shows up in media a lot and has actually shown up in Fallout's canon, despite not having a whole lot of real versions of it. There was only a handful of them ever made. It was sort of a prototype that went nowhere, but it went somewhere in the Fallout universe, and that is the idea with this shotgun here. And the idea of a burst fire shotgun is really, really fun. Now, the real Smith & Wesson prototype was a 12-gauge shotgun. We do actually have the 12-gauge version as an optional file, but we also included a 20-gauge version because we thought that that would be a really interesting spot in the sandbox. There's not a lot of 20-gauge guns, and since this thing never really came to its full fruition, maybe that was a design change that allowed for more shells in the magazine compared to a 12-gauge that would have like 4 shots in a small mag. The 20 gauge one is a lot of fun because you get a lot of rounds to use and it's not too overpowered. The damage makes sense for the caliber and you're going to come across a good bit of 20 gauge in the early game, and this is going to give you an outlet to spend a lot of it, considering since it's a burst shotgun, every time you click you're going to get 3 shots. Now, the burst fire in this mod is not done through any framework. It is actually part of the animation set, which means it works really, really well. Most of the frameworks, you kind of have to hold your left click down for it to do the full burst, almost like it's automatic but capped. And if you just tap fire it, you only fire 1. This doesn't use a framework like that. Because it's tied to the animations, every time you click, it will fire 3 times, which makes it super cool. It feels like it would feel in any other sort of video game. This thing has a pretty interesting design. It is super retro looking, but also not, because it has some sort of similarities to like an AR-15 style platform, while also having some interesting modern looking aesthetics with the plastic furniture, but that's just how it came. We did also include some wood furniture options, so that is something you can put on for more of a retro look, but you can have this thing as tactical or not as tactical, I guess simple being a better word, as you'd like it. But it is still always going to have sort of that retro look. Even in areas where we included an AR-15 buffer tube and stock, we use the oldest version of that stock available from like the Colt XM series. So it is still retro parts, but it's definitely on that line of, say, the Marksman carbine from Fallout New Vegas, teetering in between what you could consider the retro style and modern style that is available in Fallout's sort of art aesthetic. Now, this thing does come with custom animations, of course, coming with those third-person animations and as well having the burst fire animations. There's also custom super mutant animations because this thing can spawn on super mutants, and the same goes for power armor. There's custom loading screens, custom sounds, a ton of attachments. Everything is made from scratch. You know how it goes around here. There's a munitions and regular file, and all of the files are ESL flagged, meaning it won't take up a spot in your ESP list for your load order. This thing is injected to the leveled list, so you will find it on enemies out in the world, specifically found on raider bosses, gunners, the Brotherhood of Steel, super mutants. You can find it as a legendary drop, or you can purchase it from a vendor. All of that happening after level 25. As usual, of course, there is also a unique that you can find that has its own custom aesthetic that looks different from the typical version of the weapon, and will have its own fun effects, and we'll talk about where to get that a little bit later. Let's go ahead and jump in game, I suppose. I think that covers all of the basics for this weapon. Let's go ahead and check out the stat block. check out the unique animations and then all of the wonderful attachments that you can use to modify this thing into any sort of wacky shotgun variant that you would like. So first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the stats of this weapon in one of its most basic configurations. This thing's got the standard receiver and pretty basic parts kit that make it look just like the reference image, the one singular reference image there is of this weapon. And this thing's going to have a base damage of about 32. It's going to have 20 gauge rounds if you use a munitions version, or 12 gauge if you don't. A fire rate of 22, but again, it is burst, so keep that in mind. That makes things weird with fire rates in this game. Has a range of 197, an accuracy of 28, a weight of 12.7 pounds, because it is a bit of a chonker here, and a value of 144 caps. And here you can get a look at the whole weapon. I'd say it's a pretty faithful recreation of the one, again, singular image of this thing that exists. But we did make some changes, like we did opt for a different style of magwell that wasn't curved to fit the animation set that we were basing this on. We now know that we could have done that because we ended up having custom animations made for this weapon, but oh well, we didn't know that at the time. And besides that, I think most of the designs are pretty similar. I think we did actually make the back here a bit different to accept more types of stocks, but aside from that, this is as close as it's gonna get for us. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the animations for this thing, because they are actually fully custom for this weapon. It is a new set of animations, so let's go ahead and check those out. So when it comes to the animations, you're also going to get a look at what this thing looks like in first person. One thing that was interesting for us is we didn't know what the iron sights look like because the one singular image is from the side. So we got a little creative with that and came up with this interesting sort of buckhorn style sight where the rear sight creeps in from the sides and aligns with the front one there. And I think that it came out pretty neat. It could have been anything, but we wanted it to be interesting and unique, since this is a pretty interesting and unique gun. We also do have 4K textures on this, so it is going to appear pretty nice. We kind of needed that for the receiver. The rest of the gun is in 2K, but the receiver is a bit bumped up. I'm going to change the time of day so you can actually see that a bit better. There you go with the engraving there. You can actually read everything, whereas if it was in 2K, it was just a blurry mess. But that means we get some really nice fidelity on all of the scratches and grime and all that good stuff. Now, this weapon is a burst fire. With the shortest mag, you're only getting 6 shots. That may seem like 2 shots, but you are getting 6 bullets used and 6 bullets worth of damage. So let's go ahead and fire this thing. Now, I know it may seem like you're going to be reloading quite a lot, but you do have to keep in mind what I just said about the fact that you are firing 6 shots. It may feel like only 2, may feel like you're spending your ammo pretty quickly, but if you use this thing like a shotgun, get really close to somebody, you're dumping a lot of damage very quickly. Trying to use this thing at range, you're going to be wasting your ammo, but if you get real up close and personal, that's a lot of pellets in one small area. And, of course, if you modify this thing with different attachments, that's only going to get better. For example, let's go ahead and give this thing a drum magazine and better recoil. And you're going to be able to fire this thing for a lot longer and a lot more accurate. I generally do like having the sort of art of what attachments you want to take. You kind of get to pick and choose, like, maybe there is a reason to take a smaller mag over a larger one, but in this case, I think it's going to be hard for people to justify not taking a drum mag, because you can absolutely let it sing into bigger enemies. With the right attachments or maybe the right legendary drop, this could be a very good boss killer. But if you just want it for a regular old shotgun, I think that maybe the large mag could suit you just fine. It just depends on what you want. Now, next up, we are going to be talking about the unique. So if you don't want any spoilers, go ahead and skip ahead until you see the weapons workbench menu. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get right into that. So the unique is a bit different this time around. All of the regular versions of this weapon are available with black polymer furniture, but the unique is the only one to offer the wood attachments that give it this cool retro look. And on one side of one of these stocks, you have a nice little decal there of a painted on red and white cross logo, because the name of this weapon is the Hippocratic Oath. And you'll notice that Hippocratic is spelled a little differently than the typical Hippocrates Hippocratic Oath, because this is a bit of a pun in that this is not only Hippocratic in that it's dealing with medicine and whatnot, but also it's hypocritical because you're hurting people more than you're healing them. But you do have a chance to restore health on hit, meaning you are going to be healing yourself. So you're healing yourself at the cost of taking health away. I don't know. I thought it was a funny pun, but maybe I'm wrong. Either way, in line with this sort of medic shotgun vibe, you are going to obtain this weapon by purchasing it from Doc Weathers. And if you're not familiar, Doc Weathers is a roaming trader who only has a chance to appear at random encounter locations. So if you're trying to farm this, you're going to have a rough time. But if you come across it authentically and you do happen to see him selling this, you better grab it because you may not get another opportunity to do so, making this a pretty rare shotgun, but for good reason. Throw a drum mag on this thing, and with a chance to restore health on hit, and you have a shotgun spread, you're going to be able to heal a lot of your health back just by shooting enemies with a pretty cheap ammo type, regardless of which file you use. So, keeping that in mind, we did want it to be pretty rare and hard to get. But it's a really cool shotgun that might be worth getting. Who knows? You may already have Doc Weathers over at one of your settlements, and then he'll be selling this thing right off the bat. Now, of course, the last thing we need to talk about is the attachments over at the weapons workbench, and I may spend some time on the unique for once to show off the different mat swaps available, but we do have some fun and interesting configs you can create, of course. Taking the standard version here, let's go ahead and see what some of those are. For receivers, you have standard all the way up through advanced, the typical thing you'd find on a weapon. For barrels, we have a snub barrel that brings you all the way down into the free float sort of handguard there. And then you also have a thing that changes out the forestock here for the snub comfort barrel. And there are comfort versions of all the lengths. So we have snub, short with a comfort and regular, medium with a comfort, and long with a comfort. So you have 8 different barrel options depending on your vibes. I do want to say, though, the snub is really funny, and I like it a lot. For stocks, we have the option for no stock, which is just a buffer tube on the end. We have a wire stock that is collapsible, a full stock, which is sort of the standard config seen with the original image of this thing, a light stock that adds a collapsible sort of stock seen on the assault carbine in Fallout New Vegas, a recoil compensating stock based on some weird stuff that we found online that I don't remember the original source of, but it looked like this and it was really cool, and then a marksman stock, which takes the full stock and slaps a cheek pad on there for better aim with scopes. And it seems like we have some visitors, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of those guys so they don't bother us during this video. Now, for magazines, we have a standard magazine, a quick eject, which adds a little loop on the bottom there, a medium quick eject, a large, which is double stacked, as you can see, allowing for a lot of bullets, and a large quick eject as well, and then a drum, which does not have a quick eject variant because that's sort of the trade-off for having so much ammo. You're going to get a slow reload, and that's that. Now, all of these smaller mags actually do have their capacity marked. This here says 6 max, this one tells you 9, and I believe this one is 18 because of the double stack. For the capacities, we actually made a shotgun shell mesh and stacked them in these to see how much would actually fit in these magazines, so it is as realistic as we could make it, believe it or not. And they all do equivalent... They all do have an amount that makes 3-round bursts not stupid. Not like the FAMAS, where you have 3-round burst but 25 rounds in your magazine, so you're going to fire 1 bullet on its own. There is a multiple of 3 in these, so it will be perfect for the 3-round burst. For sights, we have the iron sights. We also have glow sights, which are pretty crazy looking. We've got a dot sight, hollow sight, reflex sight, laser sight, combat scope, short scope, medium scope, night vision, recon, and thermal scope. For muzzles, we have the option for no muzzle, a spiked muzzle for more melee damage, a compensator, duckbill choke for tighter spread, a muzzle brake, suppressor, and heavy suppressor. For accessories, we have a flashlight, laser, and VATS targeting module, same as usual. We also have shell types for buckshot, dragon's breath, flechette, magnum buck, slugs, rifled slugs, pulse slugs, and plasma slugs, so you have a lot of different options there. And for grips, we have the standard grip, a heavy grip, comfort grip, and sharpshooter's grip. So you can't sort of make this into a sniper with slugs and 3-round bursts. It would be weird, but you can totally do it. Really quick, we'll take a look at the Hippocratic Oath, go over to its grips and stocks, because they are different with the matte swaps. Here is the standard, heavy. Comfort has a two-tone plastic and wood that I think looks really cool. And then sharpshooter, all in wood. And then same goes for all of the stock options, or at least most of them. There it is. No stock. Wire stock is obviously... Excuse my sneeze. Oh my goodness, I've been holding that in for like 5 minutes. Wire stock has all metal, so no wood change there, but the full stock is wood. The light stock is obviously not going to be wood. Recoil is wood, though, and so is the Marksman. I think that all of those look pretty dang cool. Recoil's the only one that has this sweet decal, though, so keep that in mind if you want to have a medic shotgun. This is the stock you're going to want, and, I mean, recoil compensating is probably what you want for this guy anyways. So yeah, guys, that is the Marine Shotgun, our brand new, really funky 3-round burst shotgun. If you want to check this thing out, it will be linked down in the description below, so you can actually download this, and if you enjoy it, consider giving it an endorsement. It really helps out the mod. Additionally, if you enjoyed this video, consider dropping it a like. It helps me know what kind of video you guys like. It helps me know what kind of videos you guys like to see. If you would like to support my work in a more direct way, you can check me out on Patreon, but of course, that is completely optional. You should not feel like you have to. Once again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.